There is a quiet paradox in the world. Some of the most intelligent people, the most observant minds, the ones who think deeply about life, often experience a strange and persistent loneliness. Not the kind of loneliness that comes from having no people around, but a deeper loneliness. The kind that happens when you feel surrounded by people, yet somehow disconnected from them. You can be in a crowded room, talking, smiling, participating in conversations, and still feel like your mind is somewhere else entirely. As if you are watching life from the outside rather than truly living inside it. This experience is more common than most people realize. And more importantly, it is something that one of the most controversial philosophers in history tried to explain. Friedrich Nietzsche believed that loneliness is not always a sign of weakness. Sometimes it is a consequence of thinking differently from the majority of society. Because the deeper a person understands the world, the harder it becomes to share that understanding with others. Nietzsche once wrote, "One must learn to love oneself. Thus I teach it with a wholesome and healthy love, so that one can bear to be with oneself." Behind these words lies a powerful idea. The mind that seeks truth often walks a lonely path. But why does this happen? Why do intelligent people often feel isolated from others? And is this loneliness something that should be feared? Or something that might actually be necessary for growth? To understand this, we must explore several ideas that Nietzsche believed shaped human society. Ideas about truth, about conformity, about the human desire for comfort, and about the difficult path of the independent thinker. The first reason, intelligent people question everything. Most people move through life guided by systems they rarely question. Cultural traditions, social expectations, religious beliefs, political ideas, moral rules. These systems give people a sense of stability. They help simplify a complex world. And for many individuals, these structures provide comfort because questioning everything can be unsettling. It creates uncertainty. It removes the feeling that life follows a clear script. Nietzsche believed that many of society's beliefs exist primarily to protect people from this uncertainty. He famously argued that humans create systems of meaning not necessarily because they are true, but because they are psychologically useful. Religion, for example, often provides answers to life's biggest questions. Why are we here? What happens after death? What is good and evil? For many people, these answers bring peace. But the deeply analytical mind often struggles to accept answers simply because they are comforting. Intelligent individuals tend to ask difficult questions. Why do we believe this? Where did this idea come from? Is it actually true or just socially accepted? And once someone begins asking these questions, the process rarely stops. One belief leads to another question. One assumption reveals another layer of complexity. Slowly, the person begins to see the world not as a fixed structure, but as a network of human-created ideas. Ideas that change across time and cultures. Ideas that often contradict each other. And this realization can be both liberating and isolating. Because when you see how many beliefs are constructed, it becomes difficult to fully participate in them. You might still respect traditions. You might still appreciate culture. But part of your mind is always analyzing them from the outside. And this creates a subtle separation between you and those who never question those systems. Not because you feel superior, but because you see things through a different lens. The second reason, depth of thought, creates distance. Another reason intelligent people often feel lonely is the depth at which they process experiences. For many people, everyday conversations remain on the surface. Discussions about work, daily routines, popular trends, entertainment. These topics form the foundation of most social interaction. And there is nothing wrong with that. Surface-level conversations help maintain social bonds. They make interactions easier. They keep communication light and predictable. But the deeply reflective mind often craves something different. It looks for meaning behind events. It analyzes motivations. It explores philosophical questions. What is the purpose of life? Why do humans behave the way they do? What does it mean to live authentically? These questions rarely appear in casual conversation. And when they do, they often make people uncomfortable. Because deep questions challenge assumptions. They require emotional honesty. They force people to confront uncertainties they would rather avoid. So many individuals simply avoid them. Nietzsche believed that most people prefer comfortable illusions over difficult truths, not because they are foolish, but because psychological comfort is a powerful human need. Yet the philosophical mind cannot easily ignore these deeper questions. They arise naturally. While others may enjoy light conversation, the analytical thinker often feels like their mind is searching for something more. A deeper exchange, a conversation that explores ideas rather than just information. And when those conversations rarely happen, a quiet sense of intellectual loneliness begins to grow. You may still enjoy the company of others. You may still care about people, but part of your mind feels understimulated, as if an important part of your inner world has no place in ordinary interactions. The third reason, awareness of human behavior. Nietzsche was deeply interested in the hidden motivations behind human behavior. He believed that people often act based on psychological drives they do not fully understand. One of his most famous ideas was the concept of the will to power. This idea suggests that humans are driven not only by survival or happiness, but by a deeper desire to assert influence, to gain recognition, to protect their status, to shape their environment according to their values. Once you begin studying psychology and philosophy, you start noticing these patterns everywhere. In workplaces, in friendships, in political debates, in social media interactions. People compete for attention, for validation, for influence. Sometimes this competition is obvious. Other times it is extremely subtle. Someone may express an opinion not because they truly believe it, but because it earns approval from their social group. Someone may criticize others not out of moral concern, but to elevate their own reputation. These patterns exist in every society, but many people remain largely unaware of them. They simply participate in social dynamics without analyzing them. However, individuals who observe human behavior carefully begin to see these patterns clearly. And once you notice them, they become difficult to ignore. Conversations start to reveal hidden motives. Interactions reveal unspoken power dynamics. And social environments begin to feel like complex psychological systems. For some people, this awareness can make social life feel exhausting, because instead of simply experiencing interactions, their mind is constantly analyzing them. This does not mean intelligent individuals distrust everyone, but they often become more selective about who they allow into their lives. And this selectiveness can naturally reduce the number of close relationships they maintain. The fourth reason, independence of thought. Nietzsche believed that one of the most important qualities of a strong individual is independence, the ability to think for oneself, to create personal values rather than simply adopting those of society. But independence carries a cost. Societies function best when most people follow shared rules, shared moral systems, shared expectations. When individuals challenge these systems, they often face resistance. Independent thinkers question authority. They challenge social norms. They propose new ways of seeing the world, and this can make others uncomfortable, because new ideas force people to reconsider their existing beliefs. Nietzsche described the independent thinker as someone who must step away from the herd, not necessarily out of arrogance, but out of necessity, because true originality cannot exist within strict conformity. History provides many examples of individuals who faced isolation because of their ideas. Philosophers, scientists, artists, inventors. Many of them spent long periods misunderstood by their societies. Their ideas were often rejected before they were eventually accepted. This pattern repeats throughout history. New ways of thinking often appear strange or threatening at first, but they are also the source of cultural evolution. For the individual experiencing this process, however, the journey can feel lonely, because independence means walking a path that few others understand. The fifth reason, emotional awareness. Another often overlooked trait of intelligent individuals is emotional sensitivity, the ability to notice subtle emotional cues, changes in tone, small inconsistencies in behavior, unspoken tensions between people. This awareness can create deep empathy. It allows individuals to understand others on a deeper level. But it can also be overwhelming, because constant emotional awareness makes it difficult to ignore negativity. You notice when someone is being insincere. You notice when someone is pretending. You notice when relationships are built on fragile foundations. Many people navigate social life without focusing on these details. They simply move through interactions naturally. But the analytical mind often processes these signals automatically. And over time, this heightened awareness can become mentally exhausting. Some individuals respond by seeking solitude, not because they dislike people, but because solitude allows the mind to rest. Away from social complexity, away from constant analysis, away from emotional noise. Nietzsche's view on solitude. Despite writing about loneliness, Nietzsche did not see solitude as purely negative. In fact, he believed it was essential for personal development. He argued that individuals must spend time alone in order to discover their authentic selves. Without solitude, people risk becoming reflections of their social environment, adopting opinions, beliefs, and values without ever questioning them. Solitude creates space for reflection. It allows a person to examine their beliefs honestly, to develop ideas without immediate social pressure, to listen to their own thoughts Many great intellectual achievements were born from solitude. Philosophical works, scientific discoveries, artistic masterpieces. Creative insight often emerges when the mind is free from constant distraction. Nietzsche believed that solitude is where individuals confront their deepest questions, where they face their fears, and where they ultimately shape their own identity. The danger of permanent isolation. However, Nietzsche also recognized that complete isolation can be dangerous. Humans are social beings. Even the most independent thinkers need some form of connection. The key is balance. Solitude provides clarity, but meaningful relationships provide emotional grounding. The challenge for intelligent individuals is not eliminating loneliness entirely, but finding people who share a similar depth of thought. These connections may be rare, but when they occur, they can be extremely powerful. Conversations become stimulating. Ideas are exchanged freely. Intellectual curiosity becomes a shared experience rather than a solitary pursuit. In these moments, loneliness disappears. Not because the world suddenly understands you, but because someone else does. If you have ever felt lonely because you think differently, because your mind constantly analyzes the world, because you search for deeper meaning in everyday experiences, then you are not alone. Many great thinkers throughout history experienced the same feeling. Nietzsche believed that loneliness is often the shadow cast by independence, the price of refusing to live unconsciously. But he also believed something important. Those who endure this path, who continue thinking deeply despite the discomfort, often become the individuals who reshape culture. Because new ideas rarely emerge from conformity. They emerge from minds willing to step outside the familiar. So perhaps the loneliness experienced by intelligent people is not simply a problem. Perhaps it is part of a larger process. A process of questioning, understanding, and eventually creating something meaningful. Because sometimes, the minds that feel most isolated from the world are the ones capable of changing it.